Los Angeles, Edmonton, the Gretzky Bowl.
What was
I thought that would be St. Louis versus the Rangers.
No.
number 2 is Electric Boogaloo. What's number 3?
Oh, I don't know.
Electric Three-Galoo, stupid.
No, that's not good. You got to come up with something better than that.
LA and Edmonton have faced each other in each of the last 2 first rounds. Edmonton has won them. I'm sure Gary Bettman, seeing his treasured massive television audience in Los Angeles go out in the first round is not making him happy. But really, when you look at this, I look at these teams and I thought last year they were much closer than what they are. This is LA is a 1-4-1 or 1-3-1 team. That's how they play. And Edmonton had them solved, and I think they were better last year with Iafallo and Velarde.
I can barely pay attention to what you're saying because it's Electric Boogaloo, but all the E's are 3s. That's what it is.
Okay.
All
right.
That was worth
Listen,
interrupting.
write it down.
Adam,
Check it
please.
out.
So
Anyway,
please continue.
Show.
So my thinking is, and I don't think I'm completely off on this. If
You are.
Did LA get better? I don't think anybody thinks LA got better. They had to fire their coach. Pierre-Luc Dubois didn't show up the way they wanted him to. Are they better?
I honestly do. They were really good basically post All-Star break. They settled into their new coach, which they did not do right away. And they have an identity, which is it's going to stink to play against us. It's going to be not fun.
For reference, Todd McClellan was 23-15-10. Jim Hiller 21-12-1.
Ooh, really good. Jim Hiller, former Leafs assistant coach. We saw him in Nashville at the draft. You don't remember this because some guy walks up to us. He's like, "Hey, listen to your show." And we're like, "Oh, hey, what's up?" He's like, "Yeah, that's my dad." And he points behind him to Jim Hiller. And we were like, "Oh,
so
what?
Jim
Cool."
Hiller's kid could be listening to this right now.
He could be.
Wow.
And you know what? I changed my pick. The Kings are going to win.
The Kings in 2.
Kings in 1.
So what do you like about the Kings? You were talking about how they got better.
Well, I mean,
This year to last year, you think so?
I do. They became a better playoff team.
Okay.
I think they're getting better goaltending at a Cam Talbot as well. You need you want good goaltending, you get a good coach. You want a good coach, you get good goaltending and all that stuff. This is about to become a Jim Hiller show very fast. They are built to not necessarily be the best team in these playoffs. I have a hard time envisioning them winning the Stanley Cup this year. You never know. But they've given themselves the best chance possible to beat the Oilers by playing the way they play, by making everyone's night miserable. Pierre-Luc Dubois, to me, is such an X factor here because they essentially haven't had him all year.
Yes, that's
Bobby
right.
McMahon had more goals than him, I think, which is insane. He signed an $8.5 million extension. But if he can just be an asshole, you don't have to score.
Mm-hmm.
You don't got to set up plays. You just be an asshole. Like, there's a reality here where you can salvage this season with him. He doesn't play like an $8.5 million player. He hasn't played like an $8.5 million player all year. But if he plays like an elite bottom sixer, add Kopitar and Danault to that, that's going to be a problem.
Okay.
We haven't even mentioned Connor McDavid's name yet.
No, we haven't, because that seems like the obvious thing, right?
Well, like, is this us galaxy braining everything into talking ourselves into the idea that McDavid could be shut down?
Yes. And the thing is, my rebuttal to everything you just said is the Oilers have already figured this out. They've already played most of these guys. They've already done this. And I feel like we got to kind of maybe take that into consideration. It's sort of an important point.
It's going to be a really interesting series if it's just close. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The Oilers play these games that get far away from their opponent and far away from them. They're great at erasing deficits, and they're not very good at holding leads. If these games are consistently, between 1 and 2 goals apart, I think the Kings give themselves a pretty good chance here.
Jesse, what do you think?
I think like you nailed how the Oilers play hockey. Like they need to be front runners in this thing. They need to get out ahead. And like I'm having such a tough time picking against the Kings because I love their forward group so much. Anze Kopitar, Philip Danault, right down the middle. Like, and whether you get
and Alex Lafreniere. The better Lafreniere.
That's
Laferriere.
I know. I'm kidding. I know it's Lafreniere.
I love Kevin Fiala and the goal scoring he brings. Quentin Byfield has emerged as a legitimate star in this league. Adrian Kempe, one of the most underrated players in the league. Victor Arvidsson's there again. Like, they have such dynamic players in their forward group. Like, I think they can go up against Edmonton, but
Dude, read that stupid fourth line.
Byfield, Dubois, Turcotte.
Get lost.
That's crazy.
Get lost.
Now, I don't know if they're going to run that out as the fourth line come game one. Like, maybe we see shuffling on the deck as opposed to what Daily Faceoff has. But like, they've everywhere in their forward group, they have good players.
I don't know how you weather the storm of the Oilers' top six, but Kings' bottom six is better.
If anybody's
big
going to shut
opportunity
down Draisaitl McDavid, it's going to be Philip Deneau.
We already said that last year. You know.
Yeah.
And they got close. Like, let's not act like both times weren't close series.
Okay, now pretend we're talking about the Leafs instead of the Kings. Don't we sound like babies? You know what I mean? Right? I was close. They keep losing in game 7.
Yeah,
Close.
the goaltending thing, I thought goaltending would be such much more of a bigger issue, and it hasn't. Like, down the stretch, Cam Talbot's been great. Like, it's been fine.
Why the hell did the Oilers start Stuart Skinner in the final game of the season?
He pulled back on his mistake by pulling him after the first period.
Yeah.
And everybody realized, like, oh, you shouldn't start Stuart Skinner here, and Pickard went in right after the first period. It was questionable.
There's also nothing on the line for either team.
Yeah, Knobloch needed to have a Knobloch on his head for that.
Hey. The interesting the emergence of Jordan Spence over Brant Clark, who everybody kind of penciled in to be the guy that replaced Sean Dursey. You know, when you get a guy, I think Jordan Spence is what, a third round pick? Fourth, 95th overall, fourth round, second pick in the fourth round in 2019. What a great pickup he's been. It gives them a lot of depth.
They draft so well.
They do draft really, really well. So
we spent a lot of time on the Kings, and I feel like
at
the
least mentioned
Oilers
the Oilers.
was so obvious.
But like,
okay, tell me about what's obvious then.
They score 1 million goals and they can't defend. But their million goal scoring is so good that it doesn't matter that they can't defend.
I think come playoff time, the amount you trust a player like Darnell Nurse to have a great moment throughout the entire series and not have a bad moment and screw up a game is, it come the playoff time, like, you're a little shaky on whether or not he can do that.
Yeah, Evan Bouchard's got to dial it in too.
Evan Bouchard, I think, is a Norris Trophy candidate, and don't ever say anything bad about Evan Bouchard. He's perfect.
Terrible defensive.
He's perfect.
He is a bad defender.
No, Evan Bouchard, like, he's going to score a bunch. He's going to put up a lot of apples, a couple of goals, and he's going to be fine. I worry about the other pieces of their defense.
I am curious to see the deployment of Darnell Nurse, because this guy has been a real topic of conversation. Obviously, the expectations, I think injuries have held him up, but he's not the defenseman he once was, especially when he signed that extension. The money, as we've seen in Toronto, does matter when you're talking about how to rate a player. And there are people saying, well, he's kind of like a second or a third pair guy. And that's not how he's been deployed. And so I'm wondering what kind of factor that's going to be for Knobloch in the series. It seems like a ridiculous thing to call out, but actually, he's supposed to be one of the core pieces of the defense.
Just get it on the forward stick. Do whatever you got to do.
Turn it around and go.
Turn it around and
Turn
go.
and burn.
Turn it around and go. If you get hemmed in, they're boned. They're like, I so consistently watch their games and you're like, oh, this team's unbeatable. And then the other team just gets set and you're like, oh, they're actually friggin' awful.
The other one I want to...
They're a completely Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde team that could easily win the cup.
I'm shocked every time. If I don't know if they're gonna do this game one, but every time it's Nurse CC, I'm like, wow.
Oh, boy.
That's a decision.
Yeah, it sure is a call.
Scored against the Sharks. How dare you?
The Oilers...
They scored 9 goals.
I know.
2 years ago, Evander Kane had 17 points, 13 of them goals in 15 games with the Oilers. And I believe he and Leon Draisaitl, if I'm not mistaken, were like tied for goals lead going into the finals. And they didn't even make it past the third round, which is amazing.
Yep.
Last year, 5 points in 12 games. Evander Kane, how important is it to get the best out of this guy in this series?
I mean, this series could come down to which player who is paid to be a goal-scoring jerk actually shows up.
Dubois or
Kane. Like, Kane was a ridiculous factor, ridiculous factor. And now he's on the third line getting screamed at by Corey Perry. I can't believe the downfall of this guy. You know, the problems with him were always like off ice or in the locker room or whatever. I didn't really think this whole hockey playing thing was a big issue for him. So maybe he's hurt. Maybe he's saving it for the playoffs. If he finds another gear, I don't really see how the Kings can win.
Chris Johnston did an article where he interviewed a bunch of anonymous executives around the league. Some GMs, some scouts, some other guys who work in pro hockey. This is what they said about the Edmonton Oilers defense and how to exploit it and how to neutralize McDavid. The easiest way to this was anonymous executive 2. The easiest way to shut down the Oilers is preventing McDavid from picking up steam in the neutral zone. The way you prevent McDavid from picking up steam is to mess with the way they do their breakouts and defensive zone exits. That starts with their retrievals. Ekholm, good fucking player, but he can't make plays on his backhand. And Bouchard won't retrieve the puck in the corners.
He definitely will not.
We had a good meeting about that before we played Edmonton. We executed that strategy perfectly, and we just abused them. If I'm going up against the Oilers and I identify that vulnerability, that is what I'm going after.
I think that
who the hell is this executive?
Yeah,
that is a quote.
The Kings, man, the Kings, I gotta say, they have the talent to do it up front. That means forecheck.
Dude, forget this series. CJ's so good at his job.
I know he's
so good at his job.
All right,
that's a crazy quote.
Let's get to the picks. What do we think?
Oh boy, I think it's gonna be really fun. I think we deserve a 7-game series. I think every Oilers series we deserve 7. We deserve to see as much of Connor McDavid as possible. Unfortunately, I don't think we're gonna get that. Oilers in 6.
Jesse Blake.
Good luck executing this strategy. Oilers in 6.
I will say Oilers in 6 as well. I completely agree.
Asterisk. If there's one way the LA Kings can win this series, Jim Hiller.